Good morning to all of you out there. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching the program Agenda on Signal TV via channels 8 and 250, as well as the Facebook platform of One News PH and One News PH on YouTube. Welcome to the program. Today is August 5. Yes, August 5, 2020. It's a Wednesday. We've come into the midweek, and it's become a very interesting week. Of course, you all know that we're already under modified, enhanced community quarantine, but there are people who are wondering what's the difference. Parang same, pre-preho lang pre. But it's been interesting, especially if you live in that part of Quezon City. You walk out of your house, you're standing by the gate looking at your neighbors, and then may dadang ostrich. And hindi ka makapaniwalang may dumaang ostrich, may humahabol na kambing. And then after the goat comes the dog, and after the dog comes the owner. Okay. Apparently, some people in Quezon City, in a village in Quezon City, had their own version of Jumanji in the middle of the day. Lunchtime pa naman yata yun, nagkahabulan na sila ng ostrich doon. Ang tanong ano ang ginagawa ng ostrich sa gitna ng Metro Manila? In any case, it's going to be the talk of the town for a while. And of course, the other story that's picking up speed on Facebook now is the massive explosion in Beirut. Pinagtatalunan pa kasi biglang merong mga nag-react at sinabing nuclear explosion daw. Medyo not a nuclear explosion. 10 lang ang patay. Only 10 dead according to authorities. So no way that could have been a nuclear explosion. In any case, there was a bomb explosion in the middle of Beirut, and from so far they're saying it was a fireworks factory next to a power plant. Nagkadamay-damay. So those are the stories. But locally, the stories, we will be picking up on the stories locally na medyo of interest sa inyo, lalo na yung mga nasa social media, those of you who spend their days now on Facebook, on Instagram, etc., because of the comments of incoming AFP Chief Gilbert Gapay na dapat daw pati social media ma-regulate. Well, I don't know if that's going to cause for General Gapay's stars in the skies to come crashing, because that is not going to sit well with millions of young people in the Philippines. But we'll still try to get Gilbert Gapay's side on the story, kasi naman alam niyo, so minsan mas nauna pa yung balita kaysa sa sinabi ng isang tao. We'll find out about that. In any case, today, our guests will be Congressman Rufy BIAZON of Muntinlupa City, and we will ask him about many of these things, because if you recall, Rufy BIAZON parang propeta. He's become very prophetic. He called out many things in the past months. He was one of the first, if not the first, to point out that we had so many open airports for flights coming in from China, particularly those areas infected by the virus. And he was the one who was really, he first came out and said, tigil niyo mga flights na yan, isara yung mga flights na yan because baka umani tayo ng virus. He was also one of the first to withdraw his signature on the anti-terror bill. He was also one of the first, if not the first, also to call attention to the need to improve, expand, renovate the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, or RITM. So, and then we will speak with Mayor Jorik Gakula of TAYTAY. Alam naman po ninyo, he's been a guest here before. And we'll find out what's happened in TAYTAY, na contain Manila, because sinasabi nun ni Mayor Jorik na ang daming sa populasyon ng Taytay, technically, hindi tiga Taytay. Kumbaga, ginawa silang tambakan. And let's find out. And then, we will spend time with one of our own fellow anchor at One News PH and Signal TV. We will interview our friend Robbie Alampay kasi may bago siyang programa. Mukhang very interesting. And nowadays, given that we are all continuing to be under quarantine and will be for some time, it's nice to know that there's new content coming in. And Robbie is one of the competent presenters in the country. And let's find out what he's going to be presenting to many of you on a new program. In any case, let's go to the headlines. Let's go to the stories from the front page of the Philippine Star. A resigned officer said that officials of the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation, or PhilHealth, have allegedly pocketed some 15 billion pesos in funds through anomalous transactions. During a Senate hearing yesterday, Thorson Montes Keith, a former anti-fraud legal officer in the agency, said that a mafia was behind these fraudulent schemes. Keith resigned due to what he described as widespread corruption in the agency. Amid all this, in the same hearing, acting PhilHealth Senior Vice President Nerissa Santiago said that the agency could go bankrupt next year. The actuarial life of PhilHealth was supposed to be 10 years, but Santiago said due to the decreased collections and payouts for COVID-19 cases, the lifespan drastically shortened. Malacanang says that the nation cannot afford to extend the implementation of modified ECQ or MECQ in Metro Manila and nearby provinces. Malacanang explains 67% of our gross domestic product is from Metro Manila and the Calabar zone. And as such, extending the modified ECQ can have a negative impact. MECQ was declared in Mega Manila after the call of health workers to have a timeout in order to temper the hike in COVID-19 cases. The Social Welfare Department reports that the number of families who are set to receive the second tranche of cash aid is down to 14 million from the previous number of 17 million. This was after the agency has removed the duplicates, the unqualified beneficiaries, and also those who have voluntarily returned what they received. Malacanang has countered the proposal of new Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief Lieutenant General Gilbert Gapay to include regulations on social media in the implementing rules and regulations of the anti-terrorism law. Malacanang said the provisions of the controversial law do not cover postings on various social media platforms. This after the AFP chief Gapay said Monday that he believes that regulating social media would curb radicalism among the youth, and that he would propose to include it in the IRR of the anti-terror law. To discuss the matter, we will speak with Muntinlupa Congressman Rufi BIAZON. Those were the major stories in the front page of the Philippine Star. And wag na nating patagalin, pasamahin na natin ang ating kaibigan, ka-church, ka-chokaran, Congressman Rufi BIAZON. Sir, are you there?
Yes, good morning Sito, and sa lahat ng nakikinig at nanonood, magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat.
Okay, bago tayo magkainitan sa diskurso, Congressman, I remember you were the first, if I'm not mistaken, back then who said we need to shut down the flights from Wuhan and from some other destination from China kasi kung hindi, dadami ang virus dito. Ikaw din yung nagsabi na we need to immediately expand, renovate our ITM, And eto na po tayo. From ECQ, we went to GCQ, and now we are back to MECQ. What is your assessment of our one of country? Wag na natin sabihin gobyerno, no? One of country, one nation, one people, fight against pandemic. Anong assessment mo, Congressman?
Well, ngayon talagang medyo obvious naman na nahirapan tayo kasi yung health workers na mismo ang nagsabi, humiling nga sila nung break na yan, ano? So it goes back doon sa actually noon kung sinabi nga na it's really a management issue, how we are managing the pandemic. Ang hirap siyempre na balikan yung nakaraan, yung nauna, no? Pero we can't help but say na nagkaroon ng mga misstep from the beginning and we are now suffering those consequences ng misstep na yon. So we are just hopeful na lang na kung ano man ang magawa ngayong paraan, if we could tap experts in the field of pandemics para naman matiyak natin na hindi pa lumaki lalo yung sunog.
Yeah, that's a key statement, Congressman. If we can tap experts in pandemics, the presumption is there are experts, but the general impression is the people at the IATF or government per se is not welcoming, although they're mouthing one nation, one government approach. May maraming naniniwalang parang wala, sila lang ang nag-uusap eh. Ano bang magagawa ninyong mga congressman? What can political leaders such as yourself and your associates do to change this situation or at least this impression?
Well, ang isang ginagawa namin, right now, a small group of congressmen, members of the Committee on Economic Affairs, we have been doing consultations with various sectors and people with expertise. In relation to legislation that we are preparing or we have filed para dun sa economic recovery ng ating bansa. But in the course of our consultations, may mga lumalabas no, na tulad nung we need to create or the government needs to tap experts in health economy, in pandemics, the science part of it, and yung data analysis, no, data scientists, in order to help yung body tasked to manage this pandemic to come up with solutions and concepts that have basis in science. Kasi ngayon parang ang nagiging reactive instead of being proactive. Pandemic management is being reactive. Like isang example na lang, itong right before lumabas yung mga healthcare workers, nagkaroon ng decision, no, na ibaba yung yung parang status natin from GCQ, magluwag pa further. And then suddenly, siyempre nag-react ang medical community and biglang willing tayo ulit bumalik ng MECQ. So ibig sabihin, nag-react lang tayo, no? Yung policy making was not based on yung talagang napag-aralan na mabuti na ma-input ang experts. So indicator yon na kailangan talaga natin to get more experts in the field of pandemic management. And meron naman yung mga yan, hindi lang nga natin nakikita na nagagamit sila. In fact, sometimes parang nagiging kalaban pa. Yung sinabi ng mga UP experts, no, ng scientists, na they were projecting kung ano yung possible na mangyayari, and parang it was refuted. Naging panalo kami, talo kayo pa na situation, no, instead of coming together. So yun yung nakikita rin namin. And on our part, we try to influence policy making in the executive branch.
I've noticed that for the longest time, Congress, the House of Representatives, as well as the Senate, has been very supportive, if not so aligned with the President. But there comes a point na pag nagkalintig-linti ka na, you will have to draw the line. And we are fast approaching that line because the cases just keep exploding on a daily basis. Kiko Pangilinan made the first move. Sabi niya, hindi ko susuportahan yung budget na hinihingian ng gobyerno unless maglagay sila ng mga taong naiintindihan ng ginagawa at nasisiguro kong hindi lang makukurakot or actually more the case, masasayang ang pera. Now, what is the sentiment now among members of Congress regarding this matter? Kasi it will come to a point where we need those experts and we need Congress to essentially listen to real experts. I mean, government to listen to real experts.
Siguro ang challenge namin ngayon actually yung situation brought about by the pandemic, yung pagiging yung napuwersahan, no, na napunta sa work from home arrangements, no? Kasi hindi kami nakakapag-meet dynamically, unlike yung mga time na pwede kami magkaroon ng sessions or committee hearings ng sama-sama, no? Ngayon lahat online, and it limits yung discussion. Ang problema kasi diyan, mas magiging effective ang House of Representatives or Congress as an institution. Pagka nangyari parang nagkakaroon lang ng hiwa-hiwalay na mga boses, diluted yung power of Congress, and
Yeah.
sometimes na bumababa pa dun sa point na sasabihin namumuliti ka lang yung individual congressman na yan or what.
Yeah.
So yun na isang difficulty. Ngayon yung na-mention ko na group kanina, yung committee namin, we're in active discussion. Yun nga lang, hindi yung platform para i-push forward namin yun. Doon naman namin nahaharap yung nabanggit ko na challenge, no, ng Congress as an institution. And yan, pupunta yan siyempre doon sa leadership. How does the leadership steer the institution to become relevant during times like this? Kasi marami talagang ideas na lumalabas amongst the congressmen. Pero
Yeah.
effective yung ideas na yon kung ma-channel siya as an idea of the institution. Magkakaroon ng strength. Otherwise, yun nga, parang ang tingin lang, individual moves lang, individual opinion lang ng isang congressman or legislator.
Yeah, nabanggit mo yung salitang napupolitika because this issue with the medical workers, nung nagpa-press conference sila, and I wrote about it in my column today, where it was pointed out even by Dr. Neil Leachon in our interview with him yesterday, na yung pagpe-press conference ng mga associations, medical associations, has been a regular practice nung panahon ng dengue, dengvaxia, measles, etc. Nagpe-press conference na sila. Biglang ang dumating kay Presidente Duterte, ang umabot kay Presidente Duterte ay parang pinapahiya siya o parang binaliwala siya, hindi man lang siya kinonsulta. So ngayon parang may tampo pa si Presidente dun sa mga physicians. How are you going to avoid that? Number one, the Speaker of the House tends to kind of tone down things. And then number two, how do you have access to the President himself? Kasi baka mamaya maglabasan yung mga suggestions nyo, ideas ninyo, pati kayo ma-label na naman kayong namumulitika or unsupportive of the President.
Yun nga ang mahirap ngayon, kasi there are some people na magbigay ka ng idea, no, that somehow turns out to be a criticism or a pagpupuna, no. Merong labeling din kagad, no, na namumuliti ka lang, na hindi ka supportive. Gaya nga ng mga health workers na yan, they are the frontliners and they spoke up. I think it's unfair na ituring na nagagamit sila or nagpapagamit sila. I don't think nagpapagamit yung mga doktor natin at mga health workers. They are just trying to bring out yung concerns na nakikita nila in the front lines in the fastest means possible. Kasi kung meron pa ba silang dadaanan na layers, no, bago makarating sa Pangulo, in this time of urgency, I think mababawasan na yung epekto ng kanilang pagsasalita, no? We are in special times. Everything must happen quickly sa panahon ngayon. And I think to them, that was the fastest means available to bring the matter to the attention of the President and all other government officials. yung implementors and the policymakers. In one go, alam natin agad-agad lahat ang kanong hinaharap nila, di ba? Kaysa yung dadaan pa sila sa kung kaninong channel para lang maiparating sa Pangulo personally or discreetly. I don't blame them for doing that.
Okay. We'll go for a quick break, Congressman, and when we return, pag-usapan pa natin lahat yung mga bagay niyan, as well as the anti-terror bill and yung sinasabi ni AFP Chief Gilbert Gapay na dapat i-regulate ang social media. We'll be right back. Please stay with us and Agenda will return. Okay, back here on Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV. There we go. Congressman Rufy BIAZON, welcome back.
Yes.
Okay, Kong Rufy, matanong ko lang, no? Kasi it's clear that there are now communication issues. And the general impression is IATF lang ang nasusunod at nagsasalita. Now, what can Congress do to ensure that the president is still accessible to other parties? Kasi katulad niyan, umalis si presidente, umuwi sa Davao. He will manage the country from Davao. Di lalo nang mas malayo siya from Metro Manila. Maybe it's for security, medical security reasons. But, given the situation, what happened with the medical workers, baka mamaya maulit na naman itong mga tampuhan, miscommunication, and nagkakaroon na ng cordon sanitaire around the president.
Well, it's hard to say now what can Congress do para ma-ensure yun, because of the separation of powers. But of course, yun nga, as I pointed out kanina, yung role ng leadership of Congress, of the House, would play a role on that. Kung mayroong mga feedback coming from individual members of Congress, if yun ang channel namin, yung leadership ang magdadala doon sa attention ng ating Pangulo. Kasi yan, may direct line yan. As to the other sectors, ang dapat talagang pinaka-obvious na naging channel dito was the Secretary of Health, who is the chairman of the Interagency Task Force on Infectious Diseases. Supposed to be yan ang talagang lead agency or lead body na nag-manage nitong pandemic. But obviously now, mukhang hindi naman talaga makakaila ito na ang may tiwala lang dun sa namumuno ng IATF ay yung Pangulo lang. Other stakeholders, we've heard statements na calling for his replacement. So may problema tayo doon kasi yung line of communication, may kakulangan ng confidence yung mga tao. Yun sana ang pwedeng magagamit na direct line or a line to the president by other stakeholders, particularly the health workers. Siyempre, yung Secretary of Health, who is the chairman of the IATF.
Alam mo, Kong, kaibigan ko si Secretary Duque, and for the longest time, dinedefend ko siya, pero up to the point nga na tinatawag na akong apologist ni Duque. Pero maski ako, pagod na rin ako pagtatanggol kay Secretary Duque. But the question is, professionally, objectively speaking, would it make sense to call for his resignation at this juncture? How will it help? Do we have someone who's waiting at the wings or competent enough to take over?
Well, yung replacement niya, I'd think na it would be really up to him now kasi nagsalita na ang presidente, nagsalita ang mga different sectors calling for his resignation. So nasa sa kanya na ngayon yan. So the choice is either he shapes up or ships out, di ba? Kumbaga, ako personally, ang stand ko doon, if he manages na maayos niya itong problemang ito on his own, then mabuti, continue. Kung yung replacement, may mga iba-ibang pangalan na lumalabas yan. I don't know them personally and I don't know enough of them to say na sila ang mas qualified.
But is it, Kong Rufy, is it really a person issue? And this is not to defend him. Personally, whoever replaces him, I am not going to make comment on. Pero is it the person that we need to replace, or is it the setup that needs to be replaced or improved? Kasi nag-lockdown tayo ng 4.5 months. Meron tayong IATF, puro generals ang in charge. Nagpalit tayo ng spokesperson. And parang the talk now is, can we still continue under this setup, or kailangan bang mag-overhaul, mag-renovate na si Presidente dahil pag hindi, lalong lalaki ang disgrasya ng Pilipinas?
Yes, ako personal opinion ko diyan after 5 months,
Mhm.
and ito ang dinadatnan natin ngayon, baka yun nga hindi lang change of player, change of tactics and the strategy na rin and
Mm.
probably the entire setup. Ako kasi ang nakita ko diyan nagsimula ang natin, ang difficulties, to put it mildly, at the beginning, yung exercise of leadership ng chairman of the IATF. Ang
Mm.
pinaka-evidence diyan yung February 4 hearing sa Senado, kung saan it was revealed na yung patient 0, 1, and 2 natin yata yun, 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, hindi natin ang nakaya lang natin na contact tracing was 17% of passengers of an airplane. Kumbaga, ang advantage na nga doon, may manifest yan, alam mo na kung sino mga pasahero ng eroplano, and yet
Mm.
17% ang contact tracing na nagawa, and
Mm.
then yung nagturuan yung mga members of the IATF, and at that point ang nakita ko nga noon was that the chairman of the IATF was not duly recognized by the other members of the committee. Parang hindi kinilala na in this pandemic, yung chairman ng IATF, who is mandated to be the Secretary of Health, should be the principal authority of everything. Pero parang kanya-kanya silang galaw. Hindi niya na exercise yung leadership. And
Mm.
nung pumasok na yung quarantine and then naging problema ang logistics, it was, my observation was, may kakulangan din sa organizational skills, in
Mm.
making things happen in a kind of emergency. And that's when the NTF came in, yung National
Mhm.
Task Force
National Task Force. Oh,
headed by General Galvez.
okay.
In a way ako okay yon kasi expertise ng military ang logistics ang
Oh,
organization, logistics, and making things happen. Expertise
okay.
nila yan. But I think ang naging problema naman doon, parang naging parallel sila. You have an IATF, Interagency Task Force, and then you have the National Task Force. Supposed to be ang
Mm.
delineation nila, operations lang yung NTF.
Yeah.
IATF was the policy making. But then along, as we went along, parang na-blur yon kung sino ba talaga ang calling the shots.
Mm.
So, kaya sa akin, combined, yung
No, in fact, tama ka Kong Rufy, because ang isa sa mga nakagulo was nung sinabing chief implementer. Although you, because of your background, having a military father, you have the military background, naintindihan mo na ikaw yung tiga patupad ng
Mm,
implementer at
mm.
sila yung mga boss, sila yung pinaka policy maker sa IATF. But in this case, medyo tama ka nga nagkaroon ng parallel universe, yung IATF at saka yung NTF. Very correct.
Yeah, ang kasi doon nagkaroon ng naramdaman yung kakulangan ng leadership ng IATF.
Mhm.
Ang presidente natin, sa kanya napatunayan na niya ang effectivity ng mga sundalo, 'di ba? Palagi naman niya
Mm.
sinasabi 'yun na pag binagbigay ka ng utos, by all means gagawin nila 'yan because that
Correct.
is how they are trained.
Yeah.
Kaya umasa na siya dito sa
Mhm.
NTF, and
Ano ba ito? Kaso ba ito ng kahiyaan na lang? Kasi, hindi, nandiyan na, sinabi ko, I support him. Sige na, papaligiran ko na lang siya ng mga general at saka ng mga workers. Pero pag tinanggal ko kasi yan, lalabas. I mean, is that am I correct in pointing that out na if the president removes Duque now, it would reflect on him? Do you really believe it would reflect on the president as a failure if he removed Duque now?
well, ako, I don't think naman na it would be a failure on his part, no, o lalabas na failure on his part or an admission of a failure.
Mhm.
Talagang gano'n, leaders would make decisions na na para do sa ikabubuti ng objective.
Hmm.
Ako naman, although I would understand kung sakaling gano'n man, parang nagkahiyan, I would understand kasi kahit sa akin, ako, I would be guilty of that sometimes sa sarili kong organization, no? Kukuha na lang ako ng may isang tao na parang yun nga, kahiyaan. Kuha na lang ako ng tao na mag-o-augment sa kanya, parang
Yung
gano'n.
sasalo.
Oo, but in this case kasi medyo crucial yung function ng mga offices and the personalities involved.
Okay.
This is the life of the country at stake. No? So,
Mhm.
dapat hindi tayo mahiya kung kailangan natin magpalit ng personalidad or even change a structure or the
Mhm.
approach.
Yeah, because I don't know, maybe I'm crossing the line here, maybe I'm taking too much liberty because I have known Secretary Duque for the longest time. Siya yung he's a worker. He communicates, he gets things done, pero hindi siya yung parang kasi technically we are at war. We are at war. This is our World War III. And parang we all need a Duterte kind of guy to be in the front, a General Patton sort of,
Mhm.
to say, no? Pero hindi style ni Pingoy Duque yun eh. Si Pingoy Duque yung, sige Rufi, ikaw muna dyan. O Sito, can you please look at this, no? Is it management style that is causing Secretary Duque to be persecuted? Talaga bang or talagang wrong fit for the situation lang siya? Because, I mean, he's not a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. I will never agree to that. But I will agree that baka wrong fit.
Well, ako rin naman, sa pagkakilala ko kay Secretary Duque is not a bad person.
Mm.
In fact, nung ito ngang mga ganap na ganito, no, I even initiated a resolution in the House na um, to urge, to call on the chairman of the IATF, Secretary Duque, to exercise all the powers vested in him as the chairman. No?
Mm.
Ayun, ang dahilan nun, we wanted the Secretary Duque to be backed up by Congress, no? Para
Mm.
magkumpas siya at bastunin niya yung mga kasama niya.
Mm.
Para kumbaga, makikita ng those who are supposed to follow him, makita nila na he has the backing of Congress. May resolution kami.
Oo.
Pero siguro nga, yung leadership style is not fitted dito sa scenario natin ngayon. Kakaiba naman yung scenario natin eh. Nobody has experienced, in our generation, nobody has experienced this kind of problem. No?
Mm.
Um, so sometimes it's the type of leadership or the leadership style that matters, not the personality.
Mm.
Again, I would also believe you and join you and say hindi naman siya bad person.
Mm.
It's just that in times like this, may certain type of leadership na kailangan natin.
Okay. Now, matanong ko because I have you mentioned earlier that there are many things that your associates in Congress have been talking about, trying to push forward, and some of your associates like Congresswoman Kimbo, Congressman Benny Abante, Congressman Joey Salceda, talagang pinupush nila yung supplemental budget of I forgot how much na. And then in my last interview with Congressman Salceda, who is also chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, sinabi niya na, Sito, ngayon ko pa lang sasabihin sa media ito, sa programa ko sasabihin na I want SAP 3. Pero ang problema, lahat nitong push ng Congress na maglabas ng pera para matulungan ang taong bayan, understandably, sinasabi naman ng Department of Finance, teka, saan namin kukunin yan at paano natin babayaran? How do you resolve this issue? Because now, we have MECQ, sabi ng Malacanang, hindi natin pwedeng pahabain to kasi malilintikan ng ekonomiya, hindi na natin kaya. Parang ang tao, hilo na, Congressman, hilo na ang tao. Kasi pag vaccine, may pera daw. Pag MECQ at saka SAP, wala raw pera. So parang close open, close open. Ano ba talaga ang sitwasyon?
Yan yung pinag-uusapan ng group namin, no? Kasi kasama namin sila Kong Joey Salceda, si Stella Kimbo.
Mhm.
Yung mga consultation nga na nakuha namin, doon namin ginawa namin, doon namin nakuha yung mga proposals. And yung sinasabi ni Kong Joey na stimulus package, tama ka, hindi nga malamya ang response executive doon sa proposal ng legislative. So sa ngayon doon nagkakaroon ng differences eh. So again, lalampas na 'yun sa akin, no? Beyond my pay scale nga, sabi nga, yung leadership ang makakapagbigay talaga ng solution doon. Dahil dito sa baba, doon sa committee namin, doon sa mga stakeholders, the good idea seems to be to put money, invest in people, no?
Mm.
Tulong sa tao, yung tulong sa small and medium scale industries. Pero ang balik naman sa amin, ang sabi, ang approach na nakikita ng Finance Department is assistance to the big corporations. So ang hirap nung labanan. Ako, I'm not an economist, so
Mm.
nakikinig lang din ako sa mga
Okay.
inputs nila diyan. But to me, sa naririnig ko, very sound naman yung proposal ng Congress, yung Arise Bill.
Mm.
Kasi I read also somewhere na yung idea of offering incentives to the big corporations to spur investments, no, sabi yung bababaan ang corporate income tax, etc. That would work if the investors are prepared to invest. Sa ngayon yata ang mood ng investors is wait and see eh. Diba?
At saka yung investor, mahaba ang lubid, mahaba ang pisi. Pero yung mga small micro businesses, if we don't help them now, patay sila and they're actually dying because 26 have already shut down. If more and more shut down, more and more Filipinos will go unemployed.
Yes, kaya nga yung mga yung isa sa mga narinig nakuha naming information, the bigger businesses are borrowing money from the banks pero tinatago lang rin nila. Hindi naman nila nilalabas. Parang
May advantage.
a rainy day, di ba?
Oo, kasi mababa yung rates. They're taking advantage of the rates. In any case, bago ako maubusan ng oras kong Rufy, tanungin ko lang, ano ang quick reaction mo doon sa binitawang salita ni AFP Chief Gilbert Gapay na dapat i-restrict or ewan ko ba, kaya medyo higpitan daw yung social media to prevent radicalization. Ikaw naging estudyante ka, nagmilitary ka, anong tingin mo doon?
Hindi, hindi ako nag-military. Lumaki lang sa military camp.
No, sorry. Okay.
Well, I'm one with General Gapay sa fight against terrorism. Kaya nga ako na-involved diyan sa sa anti-terrorism law. Pero yung proposal niya is not the intention of the framers of the law. Walang legal basis yung proposal niya na i-subject ang social media to regulation in pursuit of the anti-terrorism law kasi gusto daw niya isama sa IRR. Hindi pwede, no? One is it's not the intention of the framers of the law. Pinag-usapan na yan namin ng mga hearings and the idea was not included in the law. Kung yun ang intention, we would have placed it there, no? Nandun dapat yung provision na yun. Pero wala eh. So hindi kasama. Second, it cannot be introduced into the implementing rules and regulations because the IRR should not go beyond what the law provides. So sabi nga ni Senator Drilon, that would become unconstitutional.
Well, you're a social media netizen yourself. Do you believe in that perspective or that idea that there is a radicalization in the Philippines through social media? I mean, baka isa, dalawa, no, na individual, pero as a platform and as a population, valid ba yung concern ni General Gapay?
Well, the concern is valid, no, kasi the terrorists are using social media talaga, no, to spread propaganda and try to recruit. Hindi ko lang alam. I don't have any access to information on how many Filipinos have been radicalized. But the fact is, since it's there in the internet, it's accessible to anyone who has an internet access. No? So yung possibility na may ma-radicalize because of internet propaganda ng terrorists, it is there. So it's a threat. But na-outweigh naman nung pagbabantay ng freedom of expression and privacy, yung proposal to regulate. Kasi pag sinabi natin regulate social media, it would mean iko-control mo yung access eh.
Aha.
And it's people's right to information, nandun din
Mhm.
yun. So mas nangingibabaw yun than the fear of the threat na radicalization through the internet. Kasi ako
So,
mismo, example na lang,
oh.
like you said, I'm a netizen, talagang babad ako dyan. But I haven't come across, no? Personally, I haven't come across material. But since it is out in the internet, it might be accessible to others.
Mhm.
So, kaya sabi ko nga, kaya hindi naman kinontemplate ng framers ng law na isama yung regulation of social media.
Mhm.
Kasi mas mangingibabaw yung exercise ng rights such as right to information, yung freedom of expression, and privacy. Kaya hindi
Okay.
kasama siya doon.
Kung ako lang ang tatanungin nila, mas mabuti pang i-regulate natin yung pornography na mas kalat sa internet kaysa pinoproblema natin tong radicalization. But fair is fair. At least you showed, you aired both sides of the coin. At least maintindihan din ng mga tao na hindi naman absurd yung iniisip ni General Gapay. But at the same time, the law, as you pointed out, does not provide for regulation of social media through the anti-terror bill. In any case,
Pahabol
yeah,
lang, no? And
yes, yes.
there are provisions in the law, the existing law, na magagamit nila to run after yung mga gumagamit ng social media for terrorist
Mhm.
activity. So, there's sufficient powers in the law.
Okay. Kumbaga, wag mo na idamay yung aming Facebook at aming Instagram.
At TikTok.
Ano yun? Ano yun? Walang basagan ng trip. Okay, thank you very much, Congressman Rufy Biazon.
Thank
Please
you.
stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and God bless you, bro.
God bless you. Thank you.
Okay, that's Congressman Rufy Biazon, and yun po, at least marami tayong napag-usapan. Ano naman, mayroon ding concern sa tama naman ng military natin tungkol sa radicalization, lalo na yung ISIS, ginamit ang social media para i-promote yung kanilang kabangisan, kanilang kalupitan, etc. Pero sabi nga, walang basagan ng trip. May batas, gamitin yung batas para habulin yung lumalabag sa batas. Huwag nating pakialaman yung batas para guluhin yung mga sumusunod sa batas. Okay, in any case, let's go forward. Next up, we have Mayor Joric Gacula of Taytay, Rizal. Kamustahin po natin kasi siya ay COVID survivor. Ayun, Mayor Joric, good morning.
Hi, Tito. Magandang umaga po. Good morning po.
Mukhang healthy ka na ngayon, hindi na naghihina, hindi ka naman na hirapan masyado after surviving COVID-19.
Well, Tito, yung tumama naman sa akin is a mild case of COVID-19 at ayun nga, medyo mabilis rin ako naka-recover. After ilang days lang ay okay naman, and ayun nga, since usong-usong ngayon yung mga online na bentahan ng pagkain sa LGU, di syempre kami ang unang customer ng aming mga constituents. So kaya makikita mo kung naging healthy tayo agad dahil kami ang unang mga parokyano ng mga binebentang online food.
Pero alam mo, Mayor Joric, mabuti nabanggit mo yan kasi just this week, okay, na-feature na ito sa Facebook. Kasi ako talaga lahat, cable news, lahat pinapanood ko para makapick up ng mga balita. Napapag-usapan for the first time yung possibility of infection through deliveries. Kayo ba ay hindi ba kayo nangangamba? Kasi dito sa Gawing Pasig, meron akong alam na barangay captain na talaga naghigpit siya. Sabi niya, yung mga online delivery na yan, hanggang doon lang sa gate ng barangay at pagdating doon, i-disinfect ng todo, hindi namin papapasukin yung nagdi-deliver sa loob ng barangay. Sunduin nyo yung delivery para sa inyo. Kasi ang concern is the infection through deliveries.
Well, talagang posible yan dahil nakita naman natin yung mga material. Sabi nga nila sa studies na yung mga material na plastic ay kumakapit din dyan ng virus. Sa akin naman, on our part, yung mga food na nade-deliver sa atin, talagang ugali ko rin naman because I like it hot. Kaya mina-microwave natin yan. Pero if you order from, ayun nga, yung mga delivery ng mga ibang items, siguro pinakamaganda talaga is spray natin yan ng kahit yung, di ba meron, naging ugali na natin yung may dala tayong mga maliliit na bottles ng alcohol na pa-spray, parang
Mhm.
mist spray. So, siguro bago natin hawakan yan, i-spray ano natin. Pero alam mo sa panahon ngayon dahil wala nang tao nga natatakot pumunta sa mga shops, lahat halos talaga ng system ngayon puro delivery na lang. Kaya siguro ang every household should have a systematic na approach sa pagdating sa mga delivery.
Okay, do'n po ba diyan sa Taytay, kamusta naman yung mga checkpoint frontliners niyo et cetera? Kasi yun daw yung first indicator, eh. 'Pag yung nasa checkpoint tumutumba o nahahawa, ay ibig sabihin may nakakapasok na mga taong COVID. Kasi ewan ko diyan ba sa inyo nagte-temperature, sabi nila, yeah, yung temperature check na yan walang saysay yan. Ang pinaka first sign is 'pag nagtutumba yung mga nasa front line sa checkpoint, ibig sabihin napapasukan na ng mga COVID cases yan through deliveries.
Well, swerte naman dahil yung ating mga Philippine National Police at saka yung mga frontliner natin na support sa PNP ay wala pa tayong mga kaso na natamaan ng COVID, no. Kami ay nagpa-check ng ating mga frontliners at saka yung
Mhm.
ating PNP. Pero nung nag-GCQ tayo, 'di ba, medyo nagluwag tayo. Kapag merong GCQ to GCQ ay hindi na halos na checkpoint 'yan.
Correct.
Kaya medyo lumaki talaga ang cases namin dito sa aming lugar kasi boundary kami ng Metro Manila. We have a boundary with Pasig and Taguig. So,
Hmm.
yung lahat ng ka-boundary ng NCR talagang tumaas. Sito, tignan mo yung aming statistics. During March hanggang July, we only have 81 cases. Pero nung nabuksan na yung GCQ, as of today, we have 376 cases. Kaya talagang isa sa nakita namin na mode of infection, yung pumasok na sila sa mga office nila sa NCR, pag-uwi
Mhm.
nila, dala na nila yung virus para sa pamilya nila. And then, nakita rin namin through our research dito, yung aming pag-aaral, na ang mode of infection ay family na. Pag umuwi na itong worker na to galing NCR, nahahawa na yung nanay, nahahawa yung tatay, nahahawa yung anak, ganun. So, family ang infection through workplace.
Alam mo Mayor ano, mabuti napapag-usapan natin 'yan. Pasensya ka na kung hindi tayo nagfo-focus sa todo lahat sa Taytay. Pero nasulat ko na 'yan sa column ko at meron na akong na-interviewang bata din sa programa kung saan ang punto, ang direksyon ay localized employment. Kumbaga, hindi na lalabas kasi testing tayo ng testing. Te-test kita pagkatapos Lunes, pagkatapos papasok ka sa opisina, darating yung resulta Huwebes, hindi mo alam na Tuesday, Wednesday, nahawa ka na pala. Pagkuha mo ng result mo, negative ka, yung pala positive ka naman pala. Parang ang napag-usapan namin ng mga kakilala ko, dapat i-isolate na lang bayan-bayan. Pag na-test na lahat yan, wala nang pasukan, wala nang labasan, diyan na lang sila maghanap buhay. Posible ba yan? Ikaw mayor eh, ako naman wala, journalist lang ako. Posible ba yun?
Ayan, napakagandang idea pero ayun nga, sa ating bansa na tayo third world country, baka hindi makayanan agad yan dahil like for example, itong bayan ng Taytay, marami sa amin dito ang nagtatrabaho sa mga call center, sa mga mall, yung mga opisina sa Metro Manila. Ito ay
Mhm.
parang tulugan ng mga taga Metro Manila kaya mahirap maiwasan at saka tama ka nga yung sinasabi nila na nagpa-test ka ngayon, negative ka. Paglabas mo mamaya, may nakasama ka sa office na positive. Eh di pag-uwi mo yan, dala mo yung mga virus na yan. Kaya
Mhm.
ang hirap talaga nitong situation natin na to na hangga't hindi talaga magiging personal discipline ng bawat isa yung pag-iingat, talagang meron talagang risk na maiuwi ang virus sa bawat pamilya eh.
Yung bang mga grupo-grupo diyan kasi baka napansin mo na rin 'yon sa Facebook, nagmula ito kay Doc Anthony Tony Liachon, yung bang voluntary ECQ. Kumbaga individual na magdedesisyon na, wala akong pakialam kahit anong deklarasyon ng gobyerno, ako magbo-voluntary ECQ na ako. Diyan ba sa Taytay meron na bang mga samahan, meron bang mga movement to promote itong talagang limited movement or makakasakit naman sa ekonomiya ninyo at hindi talaga magagawa? Dahil sabi mo nga, ano ba yun? 70% kamo ng mga nakatira dyan, galing din sa ibang lugar?
Yeah, talagang marami kaming transient dito na mga nakatira. Dito sa amin yung ang nag-spearhead niyan is the Catholic Church, no, yung merong bilin ng ating bishop na kahit hindi pa na-declare ng ating pangulo, parang sila na yung nag-spearhead na magkaroon muna ng voluntary MECQ for the sake of our frontliners na nakiusap, no. Pero dito napupuna ko, marami ang from the upper echelons of society at saka yung mga learned, yun sila yung sila yung talagang alam nila na yung tanging pagka-quarantine lang ang makakapigil dito sa pagkalat ng virus. Pero ang yun nga, palagi natin sinasabi yung yung problema na gutom versus infection. So yun yun ang nangyayari. Yung atin namang mga kababayan na mahirap, kailangan lumabas para kumayod, para makapag-uwi sila ng makakain sa kanilang pamilya. So, nakikita natin ngayon yung mga cases na iba, doon na galing sa mga, doon sa mga talagang kailangan everyday, lalabas sila ng bahay para magtrabaho. Kailangan naman itong mga taong ito, magpatupad lang ng iba yung pag-iingat kasi nakakainis, nakaka-high blood pag nakita mo yung mga nagtitinda ng pagkain sa sidewalk o sa mga ibang mga pamilihan, mga sari-sari ay hindi nakasuot ng face mask. Yun talaga dahil ginagawa natin lahat pero kung yung sariling mga ganong klaseng tao ay wala talagang disiplina, na yun ang nakakalungkot talaga dahil parang sa kanila binabaliwala nila itong threat ng COVID.
Binalik niyo po ba yung sistema na may bilang ang mga araw ng pamamalengke, pagkatapos pagdating mo dun sa pamilihang bayan, may number ka, nire-regulate kung ilan ang papasok? Kasi yan po, dalawa ang pinaka-modes of transmission yata ngayon, yung public transport at saka yung pamamalengke. Sabi nung iba, nako, nagkakahawahan sa palengke.
Ang ginawa namin, Sito, miski nung GCQ na, hindi na namin tinanggal yung restriction sa palengke. So meron tayong color coding na ginagawa na merong ang kanilang quarantine pass ay kailangan pa rin sa palengke. They have to show kung anong araw sila pwedeng mamalengke sa pamamagitan ng stickers na nakalagay sa quarantine pass. Ganun nilang ginawa namin sa mga malls dito sa Taytay. Hindi ka pwedeng mamalengke pagka yung wala kang magpunta sa mall pag wala kang quarantine pass para maiwasan natin yung mga senior citizen at saka yung mga bata na nag-standby sa mga mall. At ito nga last week, even before the announcement of the MECQ, ay ginawa namin, pinapag-face shield na namin. Dahil marami kami nakita na nagsusuot nga ng mask pero nasa ilong lang yung, bibig lang yung nakatakip, yung ilong hindi nakatakip. Meron kami nakikita, nasa baba yung mask. So, ang ginawa namin yun, mandatory sa ating mga palengke ay kailangan merong kang face shield na suot at saka mask pag nagtitinda ka.
Ano ba patakaran nyo ngayon, lalo na ngayon nag-MECQ na, pag nakikita nyo yung mga ganyang pasaway, yung mga may mask ka nga, hindi mo naman ginagamit ng maayos, o kaya yung sa social distancing. Ano ba tayo? Get tough position na ba tayo ngayon or educate with compassion?
Hindi, kami ngayon dahil nga itong MECQ, before that ay naggagawa na ng ordinansa ang Sangguniang Bayan na talagang may fine kami at saka merong provision ng pagkakakulong. Problema dito, we had to open up another makeshift jail dahil nga dahil nga sa sobrang dami nung nahuhuli, nako-congest yung aming jail. Kaya naggawa kami ng isang jail para dun sa mga violators lang na mga maliliit lang yung kanilang mga violation. No? Hindi namin sinasama dun sa mga pusher o kaya yung may mga murder, ganun.
Mm.
So, parami ng parami. Kaya ang ginawa namin ngayon fines with corresponding may kasama ring community service.
Alam mo, bigla,
Mahigpit ngayon. Yung
bigla,
aming bagong chief of police, mahigpit.
bigla ko naalala tuloy yung nasirang mayor ng Tanawan eh. Medyo mahina na yung pangalala ko. Pero natatandaan ko noon, pinagtatali niya sa bewang yung mga pusher doon sa Tanawan. Eh sabi ko, baka pwede niyan itali natin 2 meters apart, bigyan natin ng walis tambo o walis sa tingting at magwalis sila dyan sa Taytay para madala. Pero maiba lang ako tungkol dyan sa yung quarantine pass. Sabi mo ang hawahan pamilya na. Alam ko naman nakukonsulta ka rin dun sa IATF at saka meeting ng mga mayors. If the infections are now family transmissions and we have a system of only one designated person for quarantine pass and essential purchases, pwede bang i-rapid test at least one member per family para malaman natin, okay, dito sa bahay nito mukhang meron na, kailangan walang lalabas yan sa bahay na yan. Kasi yung Pilipino, ayaw pa rin talaga nila yung dadamputin mo, lalagay mo sa quarantine isolation, pero binigyan naman kayo ng karapatan na okay, pwede ninyong i-lockdown yung bahay, sitio o kalsada. Pwede ba yon na one member of the family per family i-rapid test para malaman kung aling pamilya ang may mga COVID na?
Well, yun ang isang maganda kaya sana kaya lang problema namin sito yung yung accuracy ng rapid test. Alam mo,
Oo.
for every 1,000 na test na nagawa ay may average na 118 na positive. Itong
Oo.
118 na positive na ito, nung ipina-swab test namin lahat ito, ang nag-positive lang sa tunay na swab test yung isang tao lang. Kaya makikita mo na nakaka-frustrate yung yung ating batting average ng accuracy ng rapid test. At
Okay.
nakikita ko talaga yung sabi nga nila, the golden standard is the swab test. Kaya lang wala naman tayong ganung kakayahan. Miski nga yung yung rapid test 'di ba? Let's say ang isang rapid test ay nasa mga 700 to 800. Ang aming population ay nasa 400,000. We have 90,000 families.
Mhm.
Pagkatapos gagastos ka ng napakalaki, pagkatapos hindi naman accurate ang mga resulta. Kaya ang nakikita ko talagang yung sana lang seryosohin ng mga tao itong MECQ2 na ito, na kung saan yung ma-quarantine lang talaga tayo, na ang lalabas lang talaga yung mga tao na healthy at saka talagang essential lang para ma-contain natin yung yung hawahan. Dahil nakita naman natin 'to nung ECQ,
Mm.
konti lang yung hawahan na nangyari noon dahil nga nung panahon na yun medyo koonti lang yung may mga pasaway pero hindi gaano. Unlike nitong pumasok na yung GCQ, ang naging mentality ng tao pwede na 'to, libre na, free for all na. Kita
Oo.
mo naman yung first day ng GCQ nagtanong ako sa mga manager ng mga mall dito. Naubos lahat ng laman ng mga appliance center nila at saka yung mga cellphone. Kaya ibig
Mhm.
sabihin parang ang tao nagpiesta nung nag-GCQ. At yun nga, marami tao diyan na wala na yung liquor ban. Ayan na, tuloy na yung mga tagayan, yung mga natuloy na yung mga tumpok-tumpukan ng mga barkadahan sa bawat lugar. So,
Mm.
may mga iba diyan na natuloy na yung mga party kahit yan bawal pa. So, ayun ang nangyari sa atin eh, parang tayong nakawala eh.
Yung ano, last question ko na lang, Mayor. Kasi, Mayor Jory, kasi meron din ako, nakahuntahan ko si Mayor Eric Aprica ng Lipa. At sabi nga nila, kami hanggat maaari, yung mga nasa Manila, sinasabihan na namin doon na muna tumigil. At yung mga nandini naman sa Lipa, humanap sila ng tutuluyan nila para hindi sila nakikipaghalubilo sa iba-ibang tao. You are a city or city ba kayo? Taytay City.
Municipality kami,
Ay,
municipality.
municipality ng Taytay. Kayo ba ay dahil sabi mo maraming transient, maraming nagtatrabaho sa NCR, paano na ang mangyayari sa inyo ngayon dahil ang hawahan nangyayari sa workplace, inuuwi sa pamilya, makokontrol pa ba ninyo yan o live and let live coexist na with COVID?
Ako, ang tingin ko talaga dyan para makontrol ito, yung mismong may katawan, yung tao mismo, should be responsible enough na kamukha kami, ako everyday, nasa office ako. Pero pag uwi ko, sa bahay pa lang, nakapaglabas ko pa bago pumasok ng bahay ko suot ko na lang boxer shorts saka yung sando. Dahil lahat yung suot ko, pati sapatos, iniwan ko sa labas at pinapalaban ko na lang. Pero yung iba kasi, walang pakialam eh. Siyempre, pag dating galing trabaho, yan, nahalik sa asawa, yayakapin yung anak, magmamano sa magulang, hindi nila alam yung minsan nawawala na yung yung protocol natin sa kalusugan eh. Itong COVID nga, 'di ba, talaga sabi nila, yun talagang disiplina lang ang makakapagdamot dito sa atin. Hindi kaya na ng gobyerno eh.
Okay.
Kung ang gobyerno ang tatanungin, parang hide and seek yan eh. Pag dumaan ng pulis, nagtatago. Pag alis ng pulis, magtatambay, mag-iinuman. So, nasa sariling disiplina natin tayong mga Pilipino.
Okay, maraming salamat Mayor Joric. I think yung huling statement mo ay napaka-importante and very telling because at the end of the day, katawan mo, buhay mo, alagaan mo. Maraming salamat Mayor Joric and please continue, mag-ingat ka at sana po ay mabawasan ang mga COVID cases dyan po sa Taytay. At sana dumating ang panahon, makapamasyal kami ulit dyan sa telahan ninyo. Thank you, Mayor.
Salamat. Ingat po, ingat po.
Okay, that's Mayor Joric Gacula, Ricardo Joric Gacula of Taytay, Rizal. And ayun po, nadinig nyo na yung reality ng kanilang hinaharap, pinaglalabanan. We'll go for a quick break. And after the break, we will go to our last guest, but a very interesting individual, none other than my colleague, Robbie Alampay. We'll be right back here on Agenda. You're back here on Agenda. We have breaking news. We just got this today. Right now, I mean, 2 Filipinos were killed, 6 injured in Beirut, Lebanon, in that explosion in Beirut that I mentioned earlier. I repeat, 2 Pilipino po at ang namatay at 6 ang nasugatan dyan po sa Beirut, Lebanon. Ito ay pinaabot ni Department of Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Bert Menyes. So pagdasal po natin, let's pray for our compatriots there in Beirut, Lebanon, especially those who were injured, and for the families of those 2 Filipinos who were killed in that massive explosion in Beirut, na sana po ay sila ay gabayan ng Panginoon at matulungan ang ating pamahalaan. That's really sad news. We thought it was just one of those, industrial explosions where no one gets hurt, but apparently 2 Filipinos were part of those 10 that were initially killed in the explosion. So that's it. And now, from that sad news, let's move on to our next interview. We have with us an anchor of One News PH. He's the anchor for One News, the newscast. He is also founder and CEO of Puma Public Productions, which produces Puma Podcast, its pioneer program showcasing podcasts in the Philippines and other countries in Southeast Asia. He was also editor-in-chief for Business World. Let's get to know more of what he's up to, Mr. Robbie Alampay. Good morning, Robbie.
Magandang umaga, Idol.
Idol ka dyan. Tagal natin hindi nagkikita.
Saan ka ba naka-quarantine?
Dito sa Pasig, sa Barrio Capitolio. What about you? Where are you quarantined now?
Well, hindi ako, dito ako sa Tandang Sora. Actually, napapagitnaan ka. Ang barangay ko, Kulyat. No?
Okay.
Tapos on the other side of Cherapura Homes, it's barangay Tandang Sora. So, so napapagitnaan kami ng dalawang medyo matindi-tinding barangay when it comes to COVID.
Hindi, sabi nga nung kapatid ko na ano ba ito? I forgot the village there, malapit sa inyo. Yun nga raw yung hot zone, yung teritoryo ninyo. The hot zone of COVID. But why is that, Robbie? Nangyayari ba yan because of sheer population in the area?
Alam mo, I'm not an expert. I wish I could answer that. But I think it has something to do with that. Quezon City, marami talagang mga hotspots. It is also from sa mga na-interview natin na mga dalubhasa at sa mga opisyal sa the chiefs. Yan din is always part of the factors, diba? The realities. Where you have more people, madaling magkahawaan. And as we know, Quezon City is one of the most populous, and these neighborhoods around us certainly, it's like any typical lower to middle income area na marami rin talaga yung magkakatabing mga bahay.
Kasi sigurado ako nung lumipat kayo dyan, konti pa lang yung mga tao. Ngayon, dumami ng parang kabute. But moving on to more pleasant thoughts. Nakita ko yung video nung bago mong programa, pinatay ko eh. Kasi nainis ako eh. Naiyak lang ako eh. Sabi ko, eto na naman tayo, papakita na naman yung magagandang lugar sa Pilipinas, mamamatay lang ako ng inggit. But in all seriousness, it's good that the group continues to develop content, develop positive content, and that you are there because sabi ko, I've always said this, my wife likes you. She believes that you are one of the more competent anchors. Pero parang sabi ko, ano ba yung ginagawa ni Robbie? Travelog ba yan? History Channel ba yan? Can you share with our viewers what exactly is your new show about?
Okay, well, first of all, Sito, I mean, it's a good point and I understand completely where you're coming from. Kasi pati ako, nung pinanood ko, gusto ko rin patayin. Dahil nakakulong ako ngayon. Pero wag niyo pa papatayin dahil napakaganda po ng programa. Now,
Oh.
the name of the show is The Story of Our Islands, A Natural History of the Philippines. Now, linawin ko lang po, baka po ka napanood niyo, sabihin niyo, loko tong mga reporter ng Signal at ng TV5, may pa-travel pa. Now, we shot this obviously long before COVID. We shot this around the second half and to the final quarter of 2019. So, pinalad lang kami. Alam namin din na inabot ako, I was trying to recall, kanya nga ba kami natapos? I think it was around, start of the year, right before COVID. Because nung pumutok ang Taal, I remember nag-uusap pa kami, ihahabol pa ba natin yung certain shots on Taal, yung perspektibo na lumabas galing doon. But it's the story of our islands. It's not a travelogue. In fact, sa katunayan po, bihira niyo pong makikita akong naglalakad sa mga magagandang mga beach at nagsuswimming at naka-swimming trunks. Walang ganun na shot.
Alam mo, Robbie, magbagong buhay ka na. Alam ko, aktivista ka. Alam ko, rebelde ka. Magturista ka naman paminsan-minsan.
And then, pero
Okay.
ito po, it was a real effort to constantly remind ourselves this is not a travelogue. It was even a conscious, alam mo naman, I'm a news guy. It was a conscious effort also to constantly remind ourselves we're not even going to bring in as much as possible social issues because we really wanted to focus, as we say in the title, on the story of our islands. And so for this, we interviewed scientists, we interviewed the best experts of the Philippines, researchers. We dug through the archives of a lot of wonderful video providers, and as well as took our own shots. We interviewed everybody from biologists, botanists, archaeologists, all the way to anthropologists. To piece together, as we said, the story of our islands. So we had to remind ourselves, let's not talk about, nagbaha na naman dito at maraming nasalanta sa lugar na yan, and so on. More importantly, we felt was, if people could understand why our islands look like this, and why we have mountains and seas and rivers and earthquakes and volcanoes, you will also understand intrinsically, kaya pala nagbabaha sa lugar na yan. Kasi talaga namang nung umusbong yan, mababa yung lugar na yan. Kaya naman pala nangyari yan dahil napagitnaan ng dalawang bundok and so on. At kaya pala maraming sinasabi na tayo ay the center of the center of the center of biodiversity dahil ganito umusbong ang mga ano. So yung mga ganyang bagay, it was really a conscious effort to say that this is going to be historical. In fact, it's prehistoric. But it also a conscious effort to say that this is going to be very educational and very informative.
So it's a natural science series. Am I correct?
Yes, natural history of the Philippines.
Okay, natural history of the Philippines. So meron kang anthropology, meron kang sociology, meron kang biodiversity, etc. Pero ano ba yan? Ano ba yan? yung ninanakaw.
Yung kapitbahay ko yan, every so often may sakit yung ganyan. I-mute ko yung sa akin habang nagsasalita ka.
Hindi. Ano yan? Baka ninanakaw na yung kotse ng kapitbahay mo. In any case, so ano yan? Natsambahan nyo lang yung perfect timing because given the fact that we are now going to do distance learning, non-face-to-face learning, di napakalaking bagay niyan.
Teka yan, tapos na yung alarm.
Yeah.
Well, it's yes and no. Una-una sabihin ko lang, nabanggit mo kanina, anthropology, archaeology, sociology, nabanggit ko earlier on, biology, chemistry, climate change, and so on. Actually, lahat yon tama, but I will tell you, just to frame the timeline of this entire, umabot kami hanggang archaeology. So the natural sciences, biology, chemistry, geology, and so on. Umabot kami hanggang archaeology. umabot kami hanggang anthropology because umabot kami sa punto na bakit ba ang dami nating lengguwahe, no, dito sa islands. Pero hindi kami umabot sa sociology, no? So hindi kami umabot sa sociology. So, that gives you an idea of how consciously we were really trying to stick to the mission of this series, which is really to tell the story of our islands and the early peopling of the islands. Ngayon, dun sa tanong mo, sinuwerte ba kami? Well, yes and no. No, because out of respect to the producers and also the number of people who planned this out for months and who really did all the little things. You know how hard it is, all the moving parts in shooting video and a documentary for that matter. This was planned out for months. So in that sense, hindi swerte yon. Talagang you have to give credit to a lot of people who know what they're doing much better than I do. But in terms of finally shooting it, yes, sinuwerte kami. We obviously had no idea that Taal will erupt. Even we had no idea, for that matter, that 2020 is going to be cancelled. So the fact that we got all our shots in the second half of 2019 and in the final quarter of 2019, yon talagang sinuwerte talaga yon. But going back to in terms of producing something that we hope can be educational, that we hope can our educators, for example, can then now use. But by all means, certainly, if they could use this for distance learning, I think it's fantastic, and it was really produced as a curriculum.
Okay, that's good. Okay, now, Robbie, you're piquing everyone's interest. Ano ba yung first episode at kailan? What will the first episode be about? And when are you airing the first episode?
Well, the first episode already aired nung I think it already aired about 2 Sundays ago. But the first episode is really just, it starts from, if you want to understand the story of our if you want to understand the story of our islands, you have to start with understanding the story of the world. So ganun ka namin kinaririyan. We talk to geologists, we talk to scientists, to really, we start very, very quickly with the story of the world. And ang maganda doon is, you tell the story of India, China, the Himalayas, nung nagbanggaan yung dalawang continental shelf, tinulak yung Himalayas. Alam na natin yon, di ba? Everybody who watches Nat Geo, who Discovery Channel, alam mo yon. But tali-tali yan, it actually pushes some of the islands off of what we now know as Vietnam towards our area. And at the same time, you see islands emerging from the bottom of the sea, coming up from the sea, building up the majority of our islands. And one of the quick insights that you get there is, we are not only a very young nation right now, our islands are young. We are young even relative to the rest of Asia.
Okay, so malamang at malamang magkakaalaman kung ikaw ay tiga-Vietnam at kung ako ay tiga-Indonesia o India. Pero liwanagin natin na hindi tayo part of China.
Hindi talaga. Hindi. Nung linikha ng Panginoon ang buong mundo, walang may-ari ng mga at saka hanggang ngayon, even with geopolitics, pagdating sa South China Sea, marami po dyan, walang may-ari. Marami tayong karapatan pagdating sa dapat. Now we're digressing.
Okay, yeah, I know, but I'm sure that's going to be tackled because a lot of people say, alam mo, pag nakinig ka ng Indonesian, kamukha ng Pilipino, asta ng Pilipino, pati yung lingwahe, maraming Filipino, Indonesian words that are so common. So it's going to be interesting. What about those of us who missed? Like me, I obviously missed your first episode. Is there a chance to watch this on YouTube?
I think they will eventually post it on YouTube. Right now, you can watch it on the Signal Play app, I do believe.
Okay.
I do believe that's part of the plans. But I think they're just rolling it out first live on Signal TV. So if you're not watching it, it's because you're not on Signal. So this is really something that that Signal really invested in, because it really wants to show the kind of things that we do on Signal and the kinds of programming na if you subscribe to Signal, sulit po. And I'd like to say, I not just for the Chiefs, but your show as well, and Agenda, and a lot of the things that we're showing, and these kinds of things that we show, that it's really, as we say, it's not even about the political realities right now. It was even a conscious effort not to talk about the social issues. But even if you take all of that out, we still produce a lot of wonderful programs that are very educational, very informative, very entertaining. Kita mo naman yung quality ng videos na linalabas natin, and really up to par. I mean, I'm really very proud to have been part of this project.
Okay, and apparently you enjoyed yourself. Ang hirap ang hirap mamasyal sa Pilipinas, mahirap magpunta sa bundok, sa beach, etc. You must have had a really hard time doing this project.
Yes,
I'm being sarcastic.
I know. Yeah, no, but I will admit there were some parts na naghihingal ako going up. It's not like I went to each and every place that you will say there, but we did, our teams and we also did go to Cagayan. We went to the Tabon Caves. We went as near as Taytay. You don't need to go far to see the wonders of our islands. When we did that shot, for example, that you're seeing right now, this is in the office of the DOST in UP Diliman, and there's a giant scale map, topographic map na 3D. Kumbaga, mini version nung map sa Luneta, di ba?
Yun, okay.
But etong map na yan, yung kinatatayo ko, there's a wonderful story there. That's a legacy of Mr. Punong Bayan, our late celebrated volcanologist who taught people a lot about volcanology and the disasters that we're facing. He had that built during his time because sabi niya, we need this map so that it's easy to illustrate to people. Pagka nagbaha, pagka nag-earthquake, you can literally go to the 4th floor of the DOST, point downwards, and you say, kita mo, doon nangyari yung disaster. And in fact, it's scaled and topographically accurate that now you can see na, kaya pala pagka bumuhos ng malakas dito sa Pampanga, dito sa Bulacan, itong parting to, dyan bumaba. You can literally pour water to illustrate, magbubuhos ako ng tubig dito bubuhos yan, dito pupunta dyan. And you could also see na, teka muna, so kung kayurin ko yan, itong lugar na to maapektuhan. It's part of that education. The point is, we went as near as UP Diliman, we went as near as Taytay, and then our teams went to Palawan, we went as far as Cagayan, we had teams that going to Mindanao, and everywhere you go, it was not only really beautiful, everywhere you go, there was a lot of things to learn.
Okay, well, I'll have to leave it at that, Robbie. As being an anchor, you know that we all have our time limits. Good to catch up with you. Thanks for joining us, and we wish you all the best in what I'm sure is one of the best shows produced on Signal TV. Thank you, Mr. Robbie Alampay.
Maraming salamat, Sito. 8:30 po on Sundays lumalabas yung episodes. So please try to catch it. The story of our islands.
The story of our islands. Thank you, Robbie. And that's all for us today here on Agenda. Please don't forget to pray. Pray for healing for the nation, healing for all the families that are infected, wisdom for those in leadership, and that we would all come out of this strong and united. God bless all of you. I'm Cito Beltran, and that's Agenda for today.